Welcome back, everyone. My name is Christian Smith. Welcome to the channel and another episode of the show Christian Life, where we see how Christian life through prayer or reading the Bible is practical and really comes alive in our individual and personal lives. Today, joining me, we have Nathan Shires that's going to share a short bit of his testimony and of how prayer and the Bible has impacted his life. So as we transition, let's roll that intro and we'll hand it over to him.
My name is Nathan Shires, and there were two Bible texts and a prayer that changed the course of my life. I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up attending church, but as I got into my teen years, my late teen years and the beginning of college, I had sort of a Jonah experience. I knew I was running from God, but I was doing my own thing until I got to the point where I realized that I couldn't keep going on the way that I was going. And I began to turn to God, reach out for God. And at that point, I was living in an immoral relationship and a lot of things that I knew were wrong. And it was a hard decision to leave the relationship and to go in the direction I felt like God was calling me. I needed moral courage. And so I opened my Bible, and I had been told to go to Proverbs when I need wisdom. And God directed me to Proverbs 7. I hadn't read through it before, but as I read through it, it was about a young man who was wandering in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he found himself in the wrong house with the wrong woman. And as the chapter ends, he's pursuing what seems like pleasure to him, but the last verse says that he's descending to hell, to the ways of death. And as I read that, I knew that this was describing me. And it was that text, that passage in Proverbs 7 that gave me the moral courage to make a hard decision and to leave that relationship. But then I was really struggling with God's purpose for my life. I had wandered, I had done things that I knew were wrong, and I felt like perhaps I had gone to the point where God couldn't use me anymore. Perhaps I had wasted opportunities. And the question was he still calling me to work for him? And it was in a time of prayer where I was struggling with this decision, and if God still had a purpose for my life, that a text came into my mind that I had no idea what it said, and I didn't remember reading it before. But I opened my Bible. The text was Matthew chapter 24, verse 14. And the question that I'd been struggling with was, God, do you still have a purpose for my life? What is it? And so the text, Matthew 24:14, came to my mind, and so I went and found a Bible and opened it up and turned to that text. And when I got there, I felt a sense of overwhelming, just like peace and reassurance. Because I read it and it said, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world to all nations for a witness, and then the end shall come. And for me, that was God telling me, yes, Nathan, the gospel still's got to go to the world, and I need people like you even, who've made mistakes, who've messed up, who've wandered, to be a part of taking this gospel to the world so that the end can come. And so with those two things, with the moral courage from Proverbs 7 to leave a bad situation, the reassurance that God had a purpose for my life, Matthew 24:14, that really led me a few weeks later to when I was on a mission trip in South America. And God had been just little by little leading me to the place where I realized that I could not go back to the way I'd been living before. And so I went off by myself into the forest, South America, and I knelt down by a little stream, and I just poured out my heart to God, and I prayed. And I'll never forget this prayer, because as I poured out my heart, I knew that I had been living in sin. I knew I'd made a lot of mistakes, but God had been showing me that He would welcome back even someone like me. I poured out my heart and I gave my heart. I said, God, I don't want to go back to the way I was living before, but I want the rest of my life to be sold out for you, and I want to work for you. And the overwhelming sense of my mistakes compounded with the reassurance that God was right there and He was wrapping His arms around me and He was welcoming me back, brought tears to my eyes, and the realization that God had welcomed me back into His family. and He had a purpose for my life. He had forgiven me of my sins, and now He had a calling in my life working for Him. And it was those two Bible texts and that prayer and the reassurance that God had forgiven me that led me to make the decision to go into ministry, which is where I've been working for the past few years, different ministries, and the last a year and a half ago into pastoral ministry here in Oklahoma. Two texts and a prayer changed the course of my life, and I know that it can do the same for you.
All right, thank you so much, Nathan, for sharing your story. It's amazing how God leads in our life. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and hit the bell icon so you can get notified when new videos come out. And I will see you in the next video.